Good evening, everyone. My name is Karthik Goravarthi. I'm the Faculty of Anthropology. This is Mr. Vinay Krishna. He is also a colleague of mine, a faculty in anthropology. So welcome you all. Welcome all the online students who are attending this workshop. The purpose of this workshop is essentially to help you make an informed decision or informed choice when you choose your optional subject. And we are here to give you an introduction about what our optional is, which is anthropology. I'll also give you a brief overview about the syllabus so that you will know what's in store for you when you choose this as your optional. And we will also try to explain to you what kind of a methodology that we use in our faculty when it comes to your training, tests, and everything else. So what we will do is I will take the initial session explaining to you about my part of the syllabus, and then Mr. Vinoy will join and explain to you about his part of the syllabus. Mr. Vinoy Krishna deals with that portion of the syllabus which is known as biocultural or physical anthropology, and I deal with the rest of the syllabus, that's socio-cultural anthropology and Indian anthropology. So I'll start off and then I'll call you back. Thanks, Vinay. So, any idea what is anthropology? Can you shift a little so that I can see all the faces? You're hiding behind the camera. It's okay. I'm an anthropologist academically. I passed out of the University of Hyderabad in 1992. I've been training aspirants for civil services for almost 32 years now. And I was earlier in Hyderabad. I shifted to Delhi in 2021. And I am the author of the most pirated books in anthropology, the so-called brain tree material. And been associated with Vajiram since they're 21. And I'm also a consultant in anthropology and media, strategic communications. I consulted with many corporates, and I'm a filmmaker. One of my latest research was in Kodavas, which is an ethnic group in Karnataka in a place called Coorg. You must have heard. I have done my visual ethnography, which is essentially a film-based ethnographic research in anthropology. And I've done my fieldwork before that in amongst the tribes in Paderu area, Visakhapatnam and Orissa border. And I've been consulting in the urban space, urban governance and urban sanitation, water and sanitation sector, and smart cities. And I have been teaching, as I told you, since 1993. And I'm now, don't consider myself old, but teaching the second generation students who are the children of my earlier students. But anyway, this workshop is more for you to speak. I'm here to facilitate helping you unravel the mysteries of anthropology in whatever possible way I can help in you people making a good choice. Optional is very critical, strategically very important, is because this examination, is continuously evolving. And the one of the reasons it's considered the toughest exam is because of its unpredictability. And it's very challenging. And even though the Gazette says that it is a graduate level, you shouldn't believe that. The kind of questions that are asked are both in general studies as well as in optionals much beyond that. And they expect the students to have some kind of lateral thinking. And they expect you people to improvise on the go, on the fly as you write the answers. But there are optional subjects like anthropology where there is a beautiful balance between static as well as dynamic components. And once you know what anthropology is, I'm sure you will realize that you have been studying anthropology for a long time, but it's just that you did not know that what you were doing is anthropology. It's there all around us. It's there in the newspapers almost every single day. And most of the goings on in this world have to do with anthropology directly or indirectly. So before I go with whatever I want to talk to you about, can you tell me what is anthropology? You have any idea? Past to present, okay? Human evolution, okay? Human society and culture. How many of you have looked at the syllabus? Oh, you did? Very nice. Hope you didn't measure the syllabus with a scale and say how many column centimeters, because I've seen some students in my life who measure the syllabus physically and say, oh, ye bahut kam hai, ye bahut zyada hai. Okay. Anybody else? What makes a human a human? Sorry? Okay. Study of, what did you say, man? In totality. Across space and time. Perfect. Somebody? Biological evolution of a human being. Okay. See, nobody can go wrong when they are attempting to define anthropology. The reason is because there's virtually nothing under the sky we don't study in anthropology. I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but anthropology is one of the youngest disciplines in the family of social sciences as well as natural sciences. And the need for anthropology was felt primarily because there are many other sciences that also deal with human beings. Okay? But the problem with most of the other sciences is that they are focusing on a specific aspect of human behavior. Like most of the biological sciences are focusing on the biological nature of man. Social sciences like sociology, psychology, or for that reason, human geography or economics and political science, they're all picking up certain aspect of the human behavior and looking at it purely or exclusively from their perspectives alone. But none of the sciences is actually looking at man from a holistic perspective. None of these sciences is actually looking at the human behavior in totality. That's one of the definitions that was often given for anthropology. I mean, we don't have to struggle to define it. When you look at the etymology, etymology is the science of words. So if you look at the word anthropology, it's derived from two Greek words, anthropos and logos. And anthropos translates to a human being, and logos is logia, which means science or reasoning. So when we marry these two words and translate it into English and make it into a definition, very simply, anthropology is the science of humanity. And a science of humanity, in a sense, we are not singling out any particular behavior here. We are not saying which aspect of humanity to study. And as a friend has said, it is a holistic study of the entire human behavior or human nature. And the human nature can be very broadly classified into three dimensions. We have a biological nature. End of the day, we are animals. We are the products of the same process of evolution that has also given rise to every other species on earth. And we are biological. We have the same biochemical properties that other organisms have, even we share. We are made up of the same biological material like the DNA, the cells, the chromosomes, and whatnot. And we also have a cultural dimension to our nature, our language, our belief systems, our value systems, our taboos or things we do, things we don't do, religion. And at the same time, we also have a social nature. In a sense, we live in groups, we interact with each other, we organize ourselves into communities, into associations, like the way we came together in pursuit of a common objective, organize our lives so that our needs can be met very seamlessly, unlike any other animal. But one problem with most of the sciences is biological sciences are singling out this aspect of humanity, humanities and some behavioral sciences are looking at certain aspects of culture, and the other social sciences are economics is looking at economic institution, or sociology looks at marriage, family, kinship, contemporary societies, social problems, and human geography is looking at how humans interact with their ecosystems and terrains and topographies. But someone has to look at all the dimensions of humanity in totality. I'm sure you must have heard this phrase before: the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So, human being is not just a bag of bones and blood, as biologists think. A human being is not just a social animal smiling at each other without any reason, or having a social behavior which is meaningless. And the human language and speech and the human ability to think is not some kind of a random behavior. If you bring all these dimensions together, lo and behold, you have a species, which is much more sophisticated than what we believe we are so far. And the reason anthropology emerged as a science is basically to make sure that we try to understand man from a holistic perspective. We try to bring together the biological, social, and cultural dimensions and try to essentially explain three questions. Who are we? Where did we come from? And why do we behave the way we do? These are the three essential questions philosophy tried to answer. And these are the very three questions our religions also try to answer. Who am I? Where did I come from? And why do we behave the way we do? And anthropology emerged to provide some kind of empirical and scientific explanation to these three questions that we have been asking about ourselves since time immemorial. And that is the reason why anthropology is considered to be one of the most comprehensive of all the disciplines that deal with mankind. When we say man in anthropology, it is gender neutral, okay? And it's just like the way we are defining a species here, man. It doesn't mean we ignore. We also have feminist anthropology and equally gender sensitive theories. So that is anthropology in a nutshell for you. So let me take you through the overview of the syllabus. Made a chart to make it more easier for you to understand. Is this visible to everyone, online students? So every other optional is organized into two papers. I'm sure you know that. The patterns of questions and the nature, the way the exam papers, optional papers are organized are no different from one optional to the other. And the paper one, we can broadly, for our academic convenience, we can classify them into socio-cultural anthropology and physical anthropology. I just told you, we study the social, cultural, and the biological nature of man. But, and when we try to translate it into something like our syllabus, this is how paper one is organized. We have socio-cultural anthropology, where we will be looking at, I'll show you the topics that we will be looking at very quickly. And then the physical anthropology is the part where we are looking at the biological nature of man. But ours is not biology. Anyway, Mr. Vinoy will be explaining to you what it entails. But it's not strictly biological anthropology. It is biocultural anthropology. And anthropology exists not to duplicate the efforts of other sciences. If biological sciences are already looking at man, then why the hell should we look at the same theories? We'll just adopt them from those sciences and try to interpret it from our perspective. Like, for example, cousin marriages will have an impact on our genetic health. right? Marriage rules, religious taboos, our customs, certain types of rituals, food habits, our nutritional, choices may all have an impact on our health, may all have an impact on our biology. And likewise, even our biology can influence our culture. It can also influence our social behavior. It's just because we stood on the two legs, we are called the erect animals, and we freed our two hands, and we are able to manipulate the objects because we have a precision and a power grip, and because we have a sophisticated brain. We are today boasting of, a complex society and a complex culture. And even our ability to speak and your ability to right now understand, hopefully, whatever I'm trying to say, and you're processing that information in real time, is only possible because of the sophisticated brains that we boast of. That is the reason why we call ourselves what? Biologically, what is our name? Homo sapiens. Have you wondered what it means? Anytime? This is not anthropology, this is general knowledge. Homo means man. We belong to the genus Homo and a family called Hominidae. And sapien means wise. And Homo sapien translates into a wise man. And that means we are the species that is boasting of wisdom. And where is this wisdom coming from? Knowledge. Where is it coming from? Purely learning. And this learning is something that's happening within our society and by our culture. And since we depend on this learned knowledge for survival, we call ourselves Homo sapien. And there's a big story behind it. This today is not the time and the place. If we get into that discussion, we'll not come back immediately to the agenda. Paper 2 is all about Indian anthropology. So paper 1 is all where we will be looking at the basic concepts of anthropology. These are the topics you have in socio-cultural anthropology. We'll start off with introduction to anthropology. You will understand most of us have left behind social sciences in 10th standard. Most of us have left behind even basic concepts of biology in 10th standard. So the syllabus is designed in such a beautiful way that a novice can also start off, talking about anthropology while learning the basics, right from the basics. And that's how the syllabus is also made. And we will be looking at some basic concepts in society and culture. Like most of us may not even know the meaning of what is a society, what is a culture. We keep using the words community, association, right? Those concepts, those basic terminologies that we will be using will be taught in that particular chapter. The language abilities of man is a separate specialization in anthropology. Language, speech, and are we communicating only through language and speech, or are we using some other mechanisms to communicate? Sorry? Like? Yeah, we use a hell lot of non-verbal communication. Our posture, our clothing, right? The way in which we speak. There's a formal way of speaking, a casual way of speaking. There's so many things that goes on. Right now I'm speaking to you, but you're not judging me purely on the basis of the words I'm saying. You're also judging me based on the way I'm saying it. The modulation in the voices, the pauses you take. They're all some things that you all are using, but we don't focus on that much. That's called the non-verbal communication. Even your written script has non-verbal communication. And today you're using a lot of emoticons, right? You keep that stupid thumbs up for everything. And I see people putting that on Facebook when somebody's saying, I lost my dog, thumbs up. But non-verbal communication can send strong meanings, much more than verbal communications. When you write answers, we keep telling you, underline important words. Make sure your handwriting is legible. Maintain right gap between the lines. That is the non-verbal communication in your written script. Bold, underline, italics, right? And we use flowcharts, we use illustrations wherever possible are nonverbal cues. And those aspects of human behavior is what we study here. And most importantly, we study comparative study of social institutions, our marriage, family, kinship. Kinship means relationships, right? We study economic institutions, production, distribution, consumption, and we study political institutions like power, authority, right? How are the tribal societies managing their social order? How modern societies are organizing themselves into, peaceful societies? How is law and order maintained? How are the parties punished if they breach a taboo or break a rule? All those aspects is what we study in political anthropology. And each one is a separate chapter. And the most important and the most surreal, the most interesting aspect of the human beings is that if all the other animals are concerned with their everyday life and everyday living and roti, kapada or makan, the human beings are equally concerned with what is happening not only in this world, but we have created another world, which is called the supernatural world. And we deal with that world also. That world has our gods, our goddesses, our ancestors, souls, spirits. And that is one of the areas which is very interesting because there's something called religion, there's something called magic, and magic, religion, and science in anthropology are part of the same philosophical continuum. When our ancestors did not have science to explain many things, they probably must have invented something like a supernatural world to make sense of their real life experiences. So that's another area that we study. We look at the various anthropological approaches to understand culture, and demography is all about population. You have demography in general studies also. And what are the factors that affect population, fertility, mortality, migrations? There are much more going on in the context of demographies, and anthropology has its own approaches and its own specialization called anthropological demography. We will be looking at some of the demographic concepts like Malthusian concept, and what are the cultural, religious, social, economic factors that influence decisions to have children, how many children, and so many other aspects we will be looking at. And the same topic you have in paper 2, where you will be talking about the structure and growth of India's population. What are the factors responsible for its growth? And despite being one of the earliest nations in the developing world to have a population policy, today we are the world's most populated nations. What failed? What clicked? And is having a large population really a demographic dividend, or is it a liability? Having such a young population, the median age is what, 28.6 or something, 28 years. And we are asking the world to come to India and invest because we have a very young, healthy, vibrant population, which many countries don't have. Many other countries are going through what's called as demographic winter. They don't have enough people to man their resources. Japan is investing heavily in artificial intelligence to take care of everything in their lives because they don't have young people anymore. South Korea is going through that crisis, but India has a definite edge in the world today. And even if H-1B visas are closed by Mr. Trump, we are good enough to take care of our economy. It's a blessing in disguise, according to some theorists. Is it true? What are the implications? What are the challenges? What are the future implications of having this kind of a population is all something we are going to discuss. And ecology, we also adapt to the environment, and we have our own specialization to understand human adaptation. So this chapter, this branch of anthropology answers one question: how humans adapt. When the adaptation is not just to the climate, the altitude, and the topography, but we are also adapting to each other. We are adapting to social environments. We are adapting to, a city living. We are adapting to a rural area. We are adapting to high altitude climates. We are the only species that can survive in any type of an environment. We are in high altitude tundras like the Eskimo. We have in Tibetan monks, we have the Ladakh and Leh and upper reaches of Himalayas. We have our own fellow human beings living in the hottest areas on earth, like arid deserts. There are people living in rainforests. There are people living in concrete jungles called cities. We have humans living in semi-arid tropics. We have humans living in coastal areas. Name another species that lives in so many different types of ecosystems. None. And we have been living on Earth for what? 55,000 years. That's all. And all of us evolved in Africa. And then we started migrating out. And look where we are. We didn't leave a square inch on Earth. And now Elon Musk is already planning to set up cities on Mars and Moon also. Probably by the time you get married, you can literally go to the moon for your honeymoon. And it's that fast, that fast. Already people are experimenting on biodomes, where you can install those homes there in those low gravity ecosystems. And people have been living now for longitudinal studies and seeing what is the impact it's going to have on our mental and biological lives. And we'll start shopping. People are already buying apartments in Dubai, London, and all for a long time. Next real estate ad you will be getting on your WhatsApp will be 10 square yards available on Mars. Okay? I hope there'll be civil service exam there also. And epidemiological anthropology. What's epidemiology? Any doctors in the class? Medical doctors? Okay. And epidemiology is all about the study of causes and distribution of diseases. The world got to know about epidemics, pandemics, endemics only because of this recent devastative pathogen called the coronavirus, the SARS-CoV-2. But we have been investigating these epidemiological consequences in anthropology for more than 100 years now. And many of these infectious diseases are spreading not because the virus is potent. They are all spreading because we started living in more denser populations. So if I stand here and sneeze, I know it's in no time I'll be spreading that germ to everybody else around me. So we have created a kind of a beautiful ecosystem for the pathogens to spread rapidly. Our ancestors never suffered from so many problems. I'm sure there must be something we are doing wrong, that today we are the species with the longest list of diseases. Culture itself is responsible for most of our diseases today. We call them lifestyle diseases. Cardiovascular diseases are the biggest killer in the world today. According to World Health Organization, 21st century is likely to see more people dying of stress than anything else. My specialization is actually in medical anthropology. And this is a small branch of medical anthropology. So we are going to look at what is a disease, what is an illness, what is the relation, what is the interaction between disease, society, culture, behavior, nutrition, and everything else. And that's a very interesting chapter with enormous applied benefits. In fact, the research in anthropology is feeding public health initiatives in the world. And many of medical anthropologists work for World Health Organization, United Nations Development Program, and strategizing on the protocols one has to follow so that we know the next pandemic is not going to be as devastating as the recent one. And vaccines and everything else will be discussed here. And then we have a chapter on how we do research, how we collect data. We call ourselves scientists. Why are we calling ourselves scientists, and why anthropology is a science? What is the difference between a natural science like biology and an interdisciplinary social science like biological anthropology? What is objectivity? See, we have a problem. We are studying ourselves in anthropology. It is a study of man by man. It's a study of humans by humans. So obviously, when we are looking at our own selves, we may be a little biased, right? Trying to boast of our own behaviors in a uh, good way. But who's bothered about what other species are thinking about us? So it's all about a discourse about ourselves. So how are we going to do that objectively? How are we going to maintain the standards of science? How are anthropologists gathering the data? And what is the quality of the research? And those are the questions we try to answer there. And then you have ancient India. When does the syllabus start in ancient India? Hmm? Correct. You will start off with the prehistoric cultures, Paleolithic, Mesolithic. They are called archaeological informations, right? In your history, do you know archaeology is a branch of anthropology? It is a branch of anthropology. Anthropology has four mother branches. One is sociocultural anthropology. Second is linguistic anthropology. Third is biological anthropology. The fourth one is archaeological anthropology. For short, we say archaeology. But it's an extremely specialized discipline. It has its own training and degrees and all. But all of us, when we were students of anthropology, we were trained in archaeology also for almost an year. So prehistoric archaeology, you have the same thing. In paper 1, you will be looking from a world perspective. In paper 2, you have the same chapter repeating, which will start off with India's Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, Indus Valley civilization, right? Same topics are there here also. And after that, we'll start off your gold Vedic age, right? So till that time, I think it is a part of your archaeology. The moment script is invented, archaeology is over, history starts. Okay, and history script was invented what, some 5 to 6,000 years ago, and most of those original scripts are not yet deciphered. But human culture is more than 2 million years old. So history cannot cover those that part of the culture where there are no written records. So in anthropology we have archaeology, which where we will be interpreting tools and material culture we call it, and try to gather as much of information we can about how our ancestors lived. Are you with me? Are you following? Am I making sense to you all? Online students, can you put it in gallery mode so that I can see there? And this is physical anthropology. Mr. Vinay will take you through it. Okay. And this is paper 2. I mean, if I block that heading, you may mistake this to be general studies. That's the greatest advantage anthropology has. The Indian prehistory I was just talking to you about, India's demographic profile, your census. I don't think any answer in your general studies can be written without taking or without invoking something to do with India's demography. Whether it is in poverty eradication or whether you're talking about GDPs, GNPs, implications, employment, and everything else. And then you will be looking at, this is where most of your Vedic age concepts will be dealt. Traditional Indian society, Varna, Ashrama, Purushartha, right? Caste, that is one of the most striking features of India. Louis Dumont, a French anthropologist, wrote about caste. You know what he named his book? Homo hierarchicus. He removed the name sapien from Indian. The Indian Homo sapiens are called Homo hierarchicus. Hierarchy means we have created that kind of a social hierarchy where some of us are considered to be upper, some of us intermediate, some of us lower, and some of us even lower than the lower. They are called the untouchables. So we study caste. Caste studies is an important aspect of anthropology, and we will be looking at caste system. There used to be a traditional arrangement, all your social issues, Jajmani system, right? Caste and politics. Is caste and politics an important thing? Bihar election, switch on any national TV. All those graphs will be based on caste affiliations, vote bank politics, how it is impacting India, how the political institutions, administrative, legislative, and even judicial institutions, including bureaucracy, you see the penetration of casteism, and this ugly alliance. We talk about mandalization of politics, Dalit politics. So these are the dimensions that you are expected to know even otherwise for general studies. And that's what we will be looking at in anthropology. Then we have rural studies. India is known as Gramavasini Bharati. Gramavasini Bharati. Bharati is another name for India. And Mother India lives in its villages, not in its cities. And even though the contribution of agriculture has come down to India's GDP, still substantial amount of India's population lives in villages. And many people are still dependent on agriculture and allied services. Even today, if the monsoons don't happen properly, the stock markets get affected. The Indian markets, the commodity market, international market, bullion, gold, silver, everything gets affected just because the monsoons have gone haywire. That's how sensitive for us villages, village lives are. True wealth is in India's villages. India's true culture is still protected in the villages. India's civilizational roots are still in the villages. So any student of India, if he wants to understand India, has to study the villages. And that's the reason why we have a specialization called rural anthropology. And then Indian culture, many Western philosophers say Indians are conservative. They don't evolve, they haven't evolved, they are very agnostic to change and innovation. Show them the list. Sanskritization, westernization, modernization, globalization. There's something called universalization, parochialization. Indian culture has always been active, proactive, changing, adapting, responding to the whole world. And we are not as conservative and as static as the world thinks we are. So there are a lot of cultural dynamics that are happening in India. We also study the role of Panchayati Raj in bringing social change, the role of media in bringing social change. Especially today, you are talking about social media and having a young population. What is the impact? What are the implications? And everything else. 2014 elections. One of the reasons why BJP won that election with an unprecedented majority, is mainly because they adapted their campaign to the younger population. Millions of new voters joined the population. And the BJP was able to adapt to social media even before Congress and UPA government political parties did. That gave them an added advantage. And you see the youth were able to get convinced by the whole campaign. And just imagine, just the social media has such a great power that you are able to reach out to people in real time. I'm sure most of you must be getting your news, everyday news from media channels on real time. You don't have to wait for the newspaper tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning is already history for us today, right? It's no more current affairs. So that's what are the implications is something we'll see. We study minorities. Constitution of India recognizes two types of minorities, religious and linguistic. And there are only two types of minorities recognized by the Constitution, linguistic minorities and religious. What are their socio-economic conditions, features, challenges, problems? And what are the constitutional safeguards? The same thing we do for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, all their problems, the evolution of those concepts, OBCs, DNTs, they are called the denotified communities, PVTGs. Recently, Pradhan Mantri PVTG mission was announced, 15,000 crores. to be spent over 3 years to ensure this. They are called the particularly vulnerable tribal groups. All this is applied anthropology in India, and all these are the part and parcel of your general studies syllabus. Ethnicity, which is your internal security, ethnic conflicts, tribal movements, left-wing terrorism, which Home Minister is saying will be eliminated by next April, and Chhattisgarh, the left-wing terrorism or Naxalism, how the tribals are caught in between. And there are so many ethnic movements that keep happening. You see the conflict happening in Manipur between the Métis and the Kuki, Naga. And like this, there are many ethnic conflicts that happen in India. There are internal security issues with a deep anthropological significance. Because tribes is one thing that we study intensively in anthropology. The reason is no other social science studies them. And we have owned up to understanding the tribal problems. So this is what you have in paper 2. Okay, that's a bird's eye view, but maybe some other time I'll give you a deep dive into the syllabus. But this is how your paper is. Every optional paper is like this. 2 papers you have. Paper 1, paper 2. Each paper will be for 250 marks, and total optional carries 500 marks. Okay, and you will have 2 sections in each paper. Okay, section A, section B. Only the question number 1 in section A and question number 1 in section B are compulsory. And each of these questions carries 10 marks. Your whole general studies paper is compulsory, right? Isn't your general studies paper compulsory? Every question you have to attempt, but you don't have to attempt that in optional. Only the question number 1 and 5 are compulsory. These are short notes, 150 words you have to write. And then you can choose any other 3 questions. Okay, but there's only one condition, that you should choose at least 1 question from each section. So if you're taking question 2 from here, you can take 7 and 8 here. Or if you're taking 3 and 4 here, you can take 6 or 7 or 8 here. So you have an external choice here. But each of these questions is again divided into A, B, C. Each question is for 50 marks. 5 short notes into 10 is 50. And let us take question number 6, 50. A, B, C. A will be 20 marks, B is 15 marks, C is 15 marks. Okay, if you pick up question number 6, you have to write all the A, B, C. Okay, there's no internal choice, but there's an external choice. And this is the kind of choice you have. And those 3 questions that come under the same question may come from 3 different chapters. It's not like they have to be asked from the same chapter. One can be from biological anthro, one can be from archaeology, one can be from religion. So that's how the papers are, and this is nothing to do with anthro. This is the pattern for all the optional papers. I don't know about how mathematics and other papers are, but this is all how the social science papers and humanities papers are. Understood, all of you? Any questions so far? No? Okay. The only 2 reasons you won't have a question. You understood everything or you didn't understand anything? Yes. Oh, that that's the area of my research in medical anthropology. There's some magic is a form of religion. Magic is the difference between magic and religion is the difference between tantra and mantra. In religion, we try to placate the supernatural. We worship them. We pray. We fast. We offer sacrifices. We are trying to please them. But even before religion evolved, there was a form of religion called magic. In magic, what happens is we are not trying to worship the supernatural, or we are not trying to placate them. We are not praying, but we are trying to manipulate them. So magic is based on certain principles, contagious and sympathetic magic. So if I give you those principles now, poof, you'll disappear. So magic is essentially based on spells, it's based on certain rituals, and people believe that if they do that, they can make the supernatural work for them. Okay? So magic is a form of religion. It's more primitive than religion. There's a very important theory in anthropology given by Sir James George Fraser. It's called the magic theory. We're going to see that. You have that in your syllabus. In fact, that chapter is called Magic, Religion, and Science. And magic is a form of proto-science, you know. Our ancestors, when they faced all these natural calamities, diseases, and death, they didn't know what is happening because they did not have access to modern science, right? So they thought that maybe there is something called supernatural, there is something invisible, something more powerful than us, and maybe I can control them. So they invented certain principles. The only problem is that those principles weren't correct. They realized it later that there is no way the supernatural can be manipulated and controlled. So they started worshipping the supernatural. So पहले बाल पकड़ते थे, नहीं हुआ. So we start placating them, worshipping them, offering sacrifices, pleasing them. Right? That is how religion came. And by the time man became more evolved, he discovered the true principles of nature. And that's how science came into being. So magic, religion, science are a part of the same continuum.
So can we say that magic is drugs for poor people?
Nah, why do you say magic is only there in poor? Magic is there even in civilized societies. In New York City, in downtown Manhattan, there are people who advertise they are professionals. Magician is a professional like an architect, a doctor. In Western countries, they are known by different names. Voodoo, for example. Magic is something which is something we also practice. For example, I'm wearing this. This is called protective magic. This is to ward off the evil eye. Buri nazar wale, tera muh kala. You know, so that's magic. It's called protective magic. I can use magic for good. I can use magic for bad. Not me. I mean humanity. And every mother puts a kala tikka, and I'm sure some of you must be wearing a black thread around your wrist or around your ankle. Your mom or somebody must have told you to wear it. Nazar nahi lagna. Evil eye, evil touch, evil mouth are considered to be bad omen. And we have people who may be willing ill for us. So we want to ward off that evil. Even in front of the corporate houses, you see the demonic face hanging. That's a warding of the evil. Magic is there in modern societies too, my friend. In fact, there's more magic now than it used to be before because the human lives became so complicated that we are not able to grapple with so much of stress in our lives that we are depending more and more on religion than we used to depend on religion before. World is moving into a new form of religion called spirituality. We're going to discuss that also. Generations like you, for especially, they'll say, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual, they say. Half the world doesn't understand how can one be spiritual without religious. But you are, you know, and that new form of religion is self-healing, meditation, yoga. There's so many new forms and so many ashrams and gurus are emerging today, right? And that's a new form of religion forming. Beatles, heard about Beatles? You know, they felt enlightened when they came to Rishikesh, and they still, that room is there. It's a museum now. In fact, they wrote a song. It's still written on the wall. It's still protected. Richard Gere comes every year to India for his pilgrimage, a Hollywood actor, right? Angelina Jolie said she was totally, a transformed individual when she came. I think for Kumbh Mela or something she must have come. One of them. The whole world looks at India. Yoga today is an international yoga day. India's greatest gift to the world. This is a new form of, we call it not religious but spiritual. And these are the new forms of religions evolving for the world. The world came to know only now, but we knew it since the beginning. So Reiki, heard about Reiki? Energy healing. Chakras, people go to many places and want to get the chakra set right. मेरे बचपन में मदर एक मारे तो पूरा चक्रा सीधा हो जाता था, आजकल तो नहीं है. सो यू डोंट हैव टू गो, लाठी लेके एक बार पीछे पिछवाड़े में मारे तो बस सब चक्रा ठीक हो जाते थे. Today people are talking about energy, healing, and resetting themselves. It's a beautiful domain, that chapter. It's a very nice chapter. Anthropology has its own theories. So anyway, this is the exam pattern, and which is similar to everything else. Now coming to the quintessential question. I have another only 20 minutes. What's the difference between social man and cultural man? Okay, Guru Gugulot. Culture is the learned behavior of man. That includes all the faculties that we acquire by virtue of our learning. Culture includes our language, our value systems, our belief systems. And these are the behaviors that we learn by virtue of being members of the society. So, the society or the social nature of man is our ability to live in groups, organize ourselves into, what are called as the human societies, which are unlike any other animal society. The social nature of man is the one that will be dealt by social sciences, and the cultural aspects of man was once upon a time dealt by most of the humanities. But socio-cultural anthropology is looking at the socio-cultural dimensions together. You can't separate them. Society or the social nature is the group behavior, and culture is the learnt behavior which what we call as knowledge that we inculcate by virtue of living in the societies. So society and culture and the basic concepts, those two chapters that I showed you, is all about answering this very question. Anthropology is indeed objective and systematic and holistic, Ayush. Study of humans all over the time and space. Is anthropology atheist towards religion? Ayush, in fact, anthropology doesn't, atheism is a form of religion. Because atheism is also a belief system. The word theism, polytheism, theology, theocracy, the word thais means a god. And atheist is a person who believes there is no God. Yeah, there are many religions in this world where the God doesn't exist. And in fact, you will be surprised to see the number of religions that are there in this world. God as a concept is relatively a recent innovation. You know, there's something called animism, animatism, fetishism, and we will see all that. Is it true Anthropaper is getting analytical? UPSC is indeed an analytical exam, my friend. And how can any paper for such one of the exams which is considered to be one of the toughest in the world, where you're competing with the best brains in the country and you want to prove that you're one of them, can be anything straightforward? General studies, essays, optional papers will be analytical. And it is for that reason that we exist, in order to make sure that you will unravel the mysteries. And anthropology is beautifully balanced between static and dynamic aspects. And analysis is nothing. Once you are done with your entire syllabus and do your value added preparation, when you look back, everything can be connected. You will start seeing anthropology everywhere around you, and the anthropological interpretations automatically enter into your general essay and your general studies also. So, analysis, clarity of thought, range of application, and the power of expression, the three things you have to gather in order to compete in this exam. Clarity of thought is where we step in. Range of application is where we do the donkey's work, reading 100 books and giving you one page. And power of expression is where you need to practice, write the tests, and develop your writing skills. These are the skills that don't come overnight. And these are the things that come with commitment, hard work. And of course, you're not alone. We are there to participate in your journey throughout the entire process. And we will be starting the classes on the 25th of October, 7:30 to 10, every single day, Monday to Saturday. And you will have a test every Sunday. And every chapter you will have a test. They will be professionally evaluated. And you will be also given model answers for the tests that you will be writing. And at the end of the syllabus, you will also have comprehensive tests. You will be getting 6 volumes of printed study material, in addition to the class notes that we keep giving you. And you will be having access to our online portal through which we'll keep giving you handouts, which will be on current affairs, any new research that must have come up, or something that we feel is relevant for your exam. And when we do help you out with your anthropology, we don't confine ourselves only to anthropology. If we think it may help you even remotely in your general studies, we will also make sure that you get value added material for that, because you just saw the syllabus. There's a huge overlap between GS and Anthro. And Mr. Vinoy will discuss physical anthropology. You will realize, I'm sure some of you must have met him. He is also the Faculty of Science and Tech. And you're not escaping anthropology by not taking it. There's a lot of anthro in your GS. You just don't realize it. And if you take anthropological reasoning and anthropological analysis and the critical evaluation of anthro to your GS and general essay, I mean, that's like icing on the cake. Okay. You have any doubts, you are most welcome to mail me. We are running short of time. So before I yield to Mr. Vinoy, this is my email ID. It's also there online, karthik.anthro@gmail. And much of everything that I spoke about anthropology, you can see on my blog also. Karthik.guru is the blog. Vajiram YouTube channel. Anthropology optional and strategic importance and why it can be your best choice. There are there. So please do go through it and feel free to get in touch with us for any questions you may have. And you can mail us, and we can also fix up a time to personally meet and interact. The duration of the classes will be about 5.5 months, may go on to almost 6 months, because we discuss every chapter, every topic, subtopic threadbare, and also give you class notes despite having printed study material. And all the current affairs, the latest happenings and goings on will be integrated into your classes. And also, long after our classes are over, we will provide you the handholding support till the time you succeed in your endeavor. And once you clear your prelims, you are most welcome to take our test series with no extra cost. So that's in anthropology we are offering you. Our students don't pay. Okay, so I'll give the stage to Mr. Vinoy. Thank you. Pleasure meeting you. Do mail me for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. No, thank you. Good evening again. Okay, so already there is a question. Navikya, I'll just take that question as we proceed with the discussion, right? Yeah, Deepu has said something. Could I just quickly have a look? Okay. Okay, good. So, some of our GS home students might already know me. I am Vinoy Krishna and shall be covering paper 1 physical anthropology part. Now, let me start from the very basic doubt that most people have for this section of the paper. Yeah, Jitendra, very good evening. The biology, as to many who don't have the background in that, and by background I mean some feel that since they are not graduated from that, would that be of any kind of impediment for learning the physical anthropology and leveraging it for getting success? Well, not a bit. The only biology that you need to have studied is till the 10th standard. And I'm very sure that there possibly might not be an exception in the class who has not studied biology till 10th. Despite the fact, given the fact that 10th standard happened years back and many did not continue with biology, I keep saying this in GS as well, possibly because they did not have a good relationship with the subject. So it went into a nasty divorce back then itself. Who would like to remember a bad relationship? But here I would try to come as someone who would create a patch up for that initial bit of comfort required. So the only level of comfort in basic biology that you need is the 10th standard thing. So if anyone who's already decided on the taking of anthropology as an optional and wishes to know what prior reading that I should do, I would suggest the basic biology of 9th and 10th would be more than sufficient. And even that, not the entire thing, some very cherry picked of the topics. Let me quickly give you the bird's eye view. I will not go for an extreme detailed description, which I believe all those who have already done the syllabus study might have already done, or you can do it in your spare time easily. But let me tell you quickly largely what are we going to cover before I then come to why I feel that this could be the very important deciding factor into your examination clearing. One thing that I keep telling all my students who come to have a consultation is that an optional paper, other than being an area of academic specialization, unlike the GS, it is much more than that. Your optional paper has to be evaluated more under the lens of how good a tool is it to clear the exam. You are not studying anything just because you fell in love with that topic and you are getting a sense of high in learning more and more about it. That is good if it happens, but that is a risk also, because it many a times robs you of the wisdom of knowing the perimeters within which you have to stay. So at all the phase of your preparation, for everything that you're participating, forget about studying, you should look at it as how efficient a tool it is. I always say a good optional is more a Swiss knife, which offers you a lot number of options to manipulate this exam called UPSC. Because UPSC also knows very well that the way or the routes and the methods through which people are getting the knowledge has been getting easier and more in diversity. Few years back, AI was not there to aid you. The number of digital platforms making you the things available at your beck and call was not there. So with so much of bombardment of the information and the ease with which you get it, UPSC also knows very well that it is the time to evolve in their structured examination also. And that is why, without changing the gross structure, within the paper itself, you will find UPSC has been evolving over the few years. And that means that your choices of the papers and the topics and the content becomes all the more important to be visualized or screened under their efficiency as a tool. I keep repeating, your optional should be a Swiss knife, not just one plain knife with one kind of a razor. Now coming to what are we going to cover and how physical anthropology and anthropology as a whole, I believe, could become one of the major deciding factor. But so we start from the very fundamental, the most fundamental that any kid is introduced into biology with. And that is the basic building block that organizes what we call as life, something cell. I think all of you, the moment I ask what is a cell, you'll have that straight-jacketed answer, structural and functional unit of life, basic unit of life, functional, fundamental unit of life and all that. Although in GS, some of the students know that I have a reservation against this definition also, because it is not necessarily the fundamental unit of life. Rather, cell necessarily means a compartment within which, the exchange of materials for the outside world can happen. But if that compartment, while exchanging material with the outside world, is also doing everything that a living organism does, let us say respiration, metabolism, growth, reproduction, response to stimuli, all of it, it then gets to be defined as a living cell, not before that. So we start from very fundamental cell, and what are the components it is made up of, what you call as cell organelles. I'm sure all of you have heard about terms like nucleus, mitochondria. Rather, the most remembered stuff from your academic past is mitochondria is also known as powerhouse of the cell. I believe it has become intrinsic to our DNA now. So the components and how do they function. Once we will study the basics of cell, we will take it to how the cells aggregate to become an organism. And of course, in anthropology, we will talk about man. So how a cell's aggregation leads to the formation of human, and in studying that, our major quest of this through the syllabus would be to decode the grand pattern as to why do we find that there is a pattern which gets followed, why all of us are having almost some similar features, physiological is functional, why we digest some food and don't the others, why we require oxygen as an important aspect in respiration, all of it, and to some level behavioral also. Why the humans have a certain degree of behavior pattern through which we can be differentiated with the other organisms. So when we know already, without being a specialist in any area, that there is some commonality that we have amongst us, the first curiosity that we will try to decode by studying cell, an aggregation of cell called human, is what is the grand pattern? Where lies all the information as to how are we supposed to become? And that will lead us to the study of what we call as genetic material. I'm expecting all of you have already heard about a biomolecular genetic material called the DNA, and we will study how the DNA stores all the information and how all those information get expressed into characters. Why your nose, your eyes, your ears, your skin tone, your hair structure, your ability to digest a food or not to digest a food, everything that you can think about yourself, where is it stored as the information, so that you can access that information and play it out in the manner that we have. So that is what it will lead to, the genetic material, the DNA. And then there are some terminologies that we will get basic clarity with. The chromosomes, I'm sure all of you have heard about the term genes and the genome. Having developed the bit of clarity on these fundamental aspects, people, the cell, the components, the DNA, the gene, the genetic material, chromosome, everything, we will then take it to a more refined understanding of the subtopic under physical anthropology called genetics. If there is a pattern, if there is some blueprint, how is that blueprint transferred from one person to another and to another, and are we connected in a particular generational lineage through sharing of those patterns? And if it is shared between or through the generations, can we use this knowledge to make the appearance or disappearance of certain characters or certain traits more predictable? So can we predict the things that are going to happen in future? Rather, this is something that I'm sure you were taught in the school days itself, was what Gregor Mendel was credited with. Not that he was the first person to have tried decoding this, but he was the first person to have done it in the most systematic manner compared to all other scientists, so that we can crystallize it into easy to remember and understand laws. What did Mendel propound? The laws of inheritance. And through that, and I hope all of you, or most of you might be remembering, that his experiments were done on a tiny little plant, on the garden pea. And what we realized through the garden pea, that there is one unifying factor amongst all the living organisms. Something that is there in the garden pea is something that could be exactly replicated in the human system as well. So our understanding, because anthropology will be staying human-centric, so despite that, we will take the route of Mendel, wherein we will see that how through the pea he could propound some of the unifying principles and how the Mendelian laws are followed by humans itself. But the moment we will learn that we follow the Mendelian law, we will suddenly realize that there are many characters whose inheritance Mendel fails to explain. Like there are multifactorial characters. You might be knowing that many places wherein, let us say, if you're signing a document for insurance or in the hospital, they make you fill up the questionnaire wherein they ask you that anyone in the family who has the history of hypertension or diabetes. But then on the other side, they are also called as lifestyle disease. I think sir has talked about epidemiology, wherein you call it as the lifestyle disease. So if it is a lifestyle disease, then why are you bothered about the history? Is it something that lifestyle is also inherited? No, certainly not. So what we realize that rather it is a multifactorial thing, and there are so many factors coming in. And the moment we take the factors beyond the genes and genetics, what we find that Mendel will fall woefully short of explaining the great sophistication that human as a system is. And that is where we will study Mendel along with how Mendel does not get followed in what we call as non-Mendelian inheritance. Now, all of these studies, people, will start making us feel more confident as to, okay, this is the pattern that we follow. And then it will lead to the evolution of the techniques. So fine that we know that this is the way the things can be predicted, they can happen in the next generation or not happen. And whenever we are talking about the characters, people, please remember that in the entire study of genetics of the humans, the having or not having of certain characters, we keep larger focus on the diseases. Having or not having on the diseases. After all, what is the purpose of acquiring knowledge? To lead to the better life. And by understanding how a particular disease may get inherited or not inherited, we'll be able to manage the diseases better. I'm sure all of you in the GS preparation must have heard about something called as sickle cell anemia. And you must have also been knowing that how the government of India is working hard to get rid of it in the country. So how to do that? And this is where I'm just trying to establish that knowing better, of its inheritance will allow you to manage the disease as well also. So the larger understanding is that through these principles, we will keep a track of the different diseases that occur in the mankind and how we can take better calls. So we will study the different techniques. Techniques, people, we have had, traditionally also, you might have heard your parents, grandparents as to how, by looking at some of the physical or physiological feature of the people, they used to take a guess as to how the next generation is going to be. That used to be more based on the observation and the statistics that they used to have as a part of their life. So we will see the prediction of the future in having and not having of the technique. We'll have traditional techniques wherein there is something called as pedigree analysis. Have you heard of it? Pedigree. Why is the dog food called as the pedigree? There is a food brand called Pedigree. Pedigree simply means the lineage, right? So that is a bit loudmouth naming of that food, as if the food giving itself will change the lineage, which it would not. But pedigree simply means the lineage. So by understanding that, okay, if you study 3, 4, 5 generations, you can make some good predictions as to, okay, there is a pattern getting followed. Based on that pattern, the next generation may or may not have it. But today, because of the tools that we have, wherein these tools are giving you the visualization at the very molecular level, the DNA and the genetic material itself, today we have the newer techniques also. Yes, like karyotyping. Don't get scared by these terms immediately. These are extremely easy of the topics. Karyotyping, there is something called as genome sequencing. I believe this is a rather more popular term in the present time, you all must have heard of. So this will all add up to give us the techniques that we have for studying of the genetics. So quick review, we will study what is cell and the organism, what is the grand pattern, what rule does it follow inheritance from one generation to another, and how do we study that rule under the techniques for betterment of the human society with respect to health and diseases. Fine. You know what all these discussion will lead to? This discussion will lead to a little poorer position of the mankind, in the sense that over the last many years, people, all the developments in the field of genes, genetics, genomics, has unfortunately given way to a philosophy called genetic determinism. What does that mean? It means that every character that you have could be determined through your genetic makeup and nothing much could be done. And because of this genetic determinism, we have seen as a society a lot number of undesirable social practices also. You see, the entire racism initially was based on the genetic determinism only. The determinism that you are born in a race and hence you are born superior, you are born in a race and hence you are born inferior, and hence you will give birth to the inferior young ones, is what is the basis behind the discriminatory practices, the racism. And that is why it becomes extremely important to deconstruct what part of your character would have the genes playing a role into it, what part of it could be the environment playing a role into it, and then how both of them mix up to create something which is way more complex than what we may think of. There was a question this year, a very simple question, which is the foundation of the diseases that we have in the adulthood is laid in the fetal stage. We cover it as a crisp topic in the class, that how the diseases a person is having in the adulthood has already got laid in the fetal stage of it, maybe because of the food behavior of the mother, maybe because of the climate she was living in, maybe because of the stress level, maybe because of the gut microbiome, so what kind of bacteria she was holding in the gut, all of it. So what we will understand, that not everything is genetic, there is something called as, the environment as well. What part of it is environment, what part of it is genetic, is something that we will develop a method which we will also call as twin study, one of the most popular aspect of the physical anthropology. Do you know twins are considered as gold mine for anthropological research? So if there is a monozygotic twin wherein we know that they are both having same gene, you keep one in one environment, keep another in another environment, with respect to any trait you wish to study. Let us say the trait is your skill in mathematical problem solving, and you wish to know whether you have inherited it from your parents or is it something that you had because you had great teacher. So what you will do is you will put the twins into one condition wherein someone has got an excellent teacher teaching that fellow, and another wherein an average teacher may be, and then you will calculate after a certain number of years of that training whether they have any statistically significant difference in their mathematical skill. If they don't have it, you will say that mathematics is something that you inherit as a trait from it. And in this manner we will try to decode and deconstruct many of these beautiful characters that we have. The possibility of having hypertension, the possibility of having cardiac vascular diseases or diabetes for that matter. Do you know there have been interesting studies also to find out on which humor a person will laugh or not laugh might also have a genetic imprint into it. Interesting, although a bit controversial as well. We'll learn what the controversy is. Having built all these basic concepts, we will come back to the basic question again as to what is life and when did the life originate. So there is this topic that we'll be studying, origin of life. Because we know that there are many theories which try to explain how the life happened in the first place. Some say that it was some supernatural design and the God created it part by part, and then there are theories that okay, the different organisms got created on the different day of the week, and it also goes on to say that on Sunday the God rested. So theory like this. Or then there is the theory which believes that maybe some astronomical occurrence happened and an asteroid which might have hit the earth, and that would have contained the seed of life and would have seeded life on the planet also. I believe all of you might be hearing since your childhood that there are attempts to find out the signatures or biosignatures, as they call it, of life at various extraterrestrial surfaces. On the asteroids, one of the major objective when you go to study Mars exploration is something that you anyway study in your GS preparation also, is to look for the signature for life. So this is one belief again. And then there is the theory that no, it was just a random event wherein some of the molecules did meet and the right energy conditions got created, biomolecules got created, and one little spark, maybe sun was the provider of that spark. We created the most fundamental trait of life, the ability to self-replicate, reproduce. And this is called as the the chemical theory or the biochemical theory of origin of life. We'll study all of it. But from that origin, how did we reach to the present state of diversity, where we have much more number of species that have gone extinct than are extant? Do you know that? The number of species, we have had so many mass extinctions in the entire evolution of 4.2 billion years. So much more number of species that exist on the planet today, they have rather left this entire world. So we have a huge diversity, so much so that presently we know of nearly 1.7 million, and we believe that there might be more than 10 million species which might be still to be discovered. So imagine a lot number of diversity. How has that happened? There were many people who tried to explain. I believe you might have heard about a very popular French scientist, Lamarck. And before Lamarck, Plato, Aristotle, Anaximander, in their own philosophy loaded concepts, there is always a fight between philosophy and science goes on. So what exists is a good amalgamate of that rather than individual pockets. But then they try to propound the theory of what is called as the great chain of life. So they said that there is a chain of life, and it is called great in the sense of hierarchy, right? Sir was talking about the hierarchical system, right? So it says that there are some lower organisms, and by lower here it means inferior, and then the higher organisms, and in that the highest of the position or highest pedestal is being occupied by who? The humans. And the humans, because of having the biological trait and spiritual trait, they said that the humans are the transition between this world and the godly world. And there is a ladder pattern, but it required one great philosopher. I'm sure this also almost all of you must have heard about. Yes, who? Charles Darwin. And he, fortunately, because he was great observer, so there is a lot of lesson when we will be learning Darwin or Mendel as to how can someone develop the attitude to be successful in life. I mean, these people were severely limited by the tools and techniques available as today, but the only big thing that they both, like Mendel and Darwin, that we'll be studying, they possessed was they were great observer. And when you become observant rather than remaining a passive subject, active observer, you start observing things and asking questions and connecting, and you get to some good conclusions despite not having the tools and techniques that you have today. So based merely on the observations, Darwin gave the theory of natural selection and survival of fittest, and Darwinian theory is considered to be, just as the Mendel's understanding of genetics, the most systematically presented concept of evolution whatsoever. But one problem with the greats that always exist, they are so ahead of their time that they propound the things which are difficult to be proven at that time because there is no tools and techniques available. The same happened with Newton. The same happened with Copernicus, Galileo. The same happened with Alfred Wagner when he suggested that we are all on the shells, and the shells are moving. Kaun manega ye chilke move kar rahe. So they are all these people, because they propound something that the world is not ready to accept easily. The world rather treats them very bad. They go harsh against it, like what nonsense. So Darwin also had to face a lot of criticism, rather most of the times below the belt criticism, which did not have any scientific, I would say, rationale in saying that. But ultimately, through the modern technology of the thing that we have already covered by them, the genes, the DNA, and how the things are changing, we would have realized that what Darwin merely by observation made observations were quite correct. Correct, but not complete. You see, Darwin again could not explain many of the questions, and the reason is very simple. He did not know anything about the chromosome, DNA, anything. So he left loopholes, and those loopholes people got filled up by another stream of science that got created by Mendel. So Darwin's philosophy, Mendel's philosophy will meet together, and what we will study is called as modern synthetic Synthetic because it is a synthesis between two lines of thought. Theory of evolution. There's a straightforward question on modern synthetic theory that we expect. And through this route of understanding of evolution of modern synthetic theory, as we call it, we will straight away go to the order primate, which includes the monkeys, the apes, the humans. And from that order primates, we will start tracing how the lifestyle of these organisms from the terrestrial went arboreal. Arboreal is tree living. And there was a question this year that the smell as a sense was something that became less of a relevant one against vision in a transition of the terrestrial to arboreal lifestyle. I repeat, क्या बोला मैंने? Smell became secondary in priority to vision as the terrestrial insectivorous species became arboreal, tree living, as most monkeys of are. Now why? Because there are easy reasons. If you are there in the tree, the 3D vision would be extremely important. On which branch is, let us say, the prey staying? The color vision would be extremely important. The fruits would be hidden, camouflaged amongst the leaves and the others. So vision becomes extremely important. And for accommodating the vision, how the snouts, which are, the nose, which is more extended earlier, started getting flattened. And that started the evolution from that conical shape to more flattened face, which we today are a master of. So what it will lead to? It will then lead us to understand the human evolution through multiple stages. Just 2 days before people, I believe some of you might have come across that news. There was a skull that was discovered in China. And after years of study, because that skull was, around 1 million year old, and it was so badly damaged that it was very difficult to reconstruct the actual, structure of it. But thanks to CT scan and the AI modeling and the simulation and the computer, 3D printing, a topic in GS that you study, has allowed the construction of that. And you know what? That particular finding, just 3 days back, it is a major news, has promised to completely change the textbooks as to when did the modern humans, what you call as Homo sapiens, evolve. So we'll be studying all of that, the entire human evolution and everything. Then our focus will go on to studying the variations in humans. Despite the fact that all of us follow the same grand pattern, you're a bipedal organism, 2 limbs, opposable thumb, the eyes, the nose, the brain protected by the cranium, a particular shape, the chin, which is a cardinal trait, we will find that despite that, no two humans are alike. There are variations. And these variation study would become an important part, where we will study a lot number of associated topics, like consanguineous marriages. As to why is it suggested that the marriages should not happen in the closed group of people. There should be a sufficient degree of variation between the two individuals at the genetic level to ensure that the avoidable diseases could be avoided. We would also study how the variations in the humans in the earlier study has led to the concept of dividing the world into different races. Negroid race, Caucasoid race, Mongoloid race. I believe all of you might have heard of these common terms. And then how it has led to a very distorted manifestation from the social perspective, racism, quite discriminatory. So we'll study the history of it. And then we will find that how the entire concept of race and racism does not hold any water today. तो हम पढ़ेंगे बस इसलिए कि हम ये जाने कि अब baseless है. So we will find a new method to study the variations in humans today, not under the races. We will study what is the distribution of a particular kind of hemoglobin across the world, distribution of sickle cell anemia, distribution of blood groups across the world. Why B positive blood group is more common in the South Asian part, why O negative and O positive you will find in the North American part, and how these variations could, instead of promoting the cause of discrimination, rather could help us evolve better systems for management of the different diseases. And that should be the goal of study of the mankind, isn't it? So we'll be studying all these variations, following which there'll be some very easy, straightforward, applied topics, like we will study human growth and development. So once you will have all understood the different factors, the genes, the environment and everything, you will see how the entire life of the human, from the womb till the tomb, from the point that the fetus is taking shape to the point when the death happens, what are the different milestones? When do you start learning? I mean, these are such a cakewalks of the topic. I mean, when do you start crawling on the four legs? When do you start making scribbles on the wall? Just the Diwali happens, and by the 10th day, painting some chopper, the newborn baby. When do you start walking on the two legs? When do you start making, the first monosyllable words, and then the meaningful words and the meaningful statements? When do you develop a sense of self-respect? When was the first time when you felt bad when your parents scolded in front of your friend? And when did you learn that, okay, to stay undressed is something, which brings shame to you? All of it, to the adulthood, and how post-adulthood the degeneration starts happening, senescence. And having studied all of these and what are the factors that control it, we will find that there are many of the factors which are modifiable. And the moment you learn there are modifiable factors, you will in the class find out the formula of staying young forever. You'll find that there are two ways of aging. One is biological, another is chronological. Chronological is just the revolution around the sun. Biological is what appears from your face. And they might not always be in synchrony. For some, the biological may go ahead, age faster. जिम्मेदारियों का बोझ बहुत पहले आ जाए. Or for some, the chronological age is ahead, biological abhi bhi piche. So what is the trick for that? And all these factors will be a part of the human growth and development. Things like, do you have in your body shape what is called a somatotype, a predisposition to become a good swimmer compared to a sumo fighter? Do you have within you to take up hockey better than, let us say, any other sport? All of these would be a part of this study. And there have been some interesting researches done on this particular aspect. Now, post that, we'll be ending with some of the topics which are clubbed under what is called as applied physical anthropology, where we will study that all the study that we have done, how it could be useful in sports. I've just hinted you which sport to choose, what dress to have in the sports. Have you heard about or read about some of the sports people? They are known for some specific kind of tools that they bring to the game. I don't know if you have heard about, there was a player of Australia, Matthew Hayden, who used to get mongoose bat. Right? What is the uniqueness of it? Now, what kind of shoes are you going to have so that you get the maximum throw? What kind of swimsuits should you have? There is a swimsuit that directly follows or mimics what's there in the shark skin. Scales. Sharks have scales. And why do they have scales? Why do these swimmers have scales? Because right under the scales, the air bubbles, they get stuck. So we have followed those and developed the swimsuits that will allow you a better buoyancy. So interesting topics these. How it could be extremely useful in the defense to develop the gun, which will be in the right proportion as that of the proportion of your fingers and thumbs, so that your ability, efficiency of usage of the gun. The tank, gun turrets. You must have seen in the tank there is this, dome inside which the gunner has to stay. How to structure that so that your mobility of the outside world and outside world's mobility of you are inverse. Your mobility is there. How to develop the cockpit of the aircrafts. All of these would be in the defense. This is exactly the physical anthropology application, that you go to the store Levi's and you say that, okay, this particular jean size, despite the fact that just 4 or 5 size bracket serves the majority of the population. Why? Because they have done the research on this. They have taken huge samples of the Indians and they have taken the body proportions, and based on the body proportions they have reduced the entire population into certain size brackets, and they have come out with the product. If you take the entire lot of the product to some other country, US or some other distinctly different race, none of the unit would go fitting in the individual. And this is all the research. This is called ergonomic research of anthropology. And we will see how this could be of extreme importance in forensics also. The identification, reconstruction of things. Just a moment back, I just talked about how from the damaged skull, the CT scan and the 3D printing, they could recreate the skull as it would have been in origin. How to get the specimens and do the research. Time abhi kitna mere paas? 7:30 बजे है ना? 10 minute है यार. कोई बात. So we will also study how it will be helpful in the DNA fingerprinting, parentage determination, fossil studies and everything. Interesting study, all of this. This is what largely the syllabus is. फटाफट बताता हूं that how you should be sitting and thinking over selecting your optionals. But any optional, as I have very earlier said itself, should be the Swiss knife. These are the markers I suggest that you should have to decide on the paper. First and foremost, the degree of dynamism in the paper. I feel that dynamism is a good thing, but only in the right proportion. Good in the sense that it will allow you to keep competing the others by just being alert enough. But lesser degree of dynamism will always be advantageous in the sense that we don't know, because this multivariate game this exam is, it might at times require some of the deserving people also to take a couple of attempts or maybe even more at times. The optional should be such that it should not put huge pressure of the dynamism every time to keep adding more and more layers so that you remain anxious all the time. The optional with a lesser degree of dynamism would always give you incremental rewards. Are you getting it? Because every revision is increasing the chance that you have for clearing the exam. That's one. Another is the degree of objectivity. You see, the syllabus should be defined in black and white. There should be no gray areas. Despite the best of the planning of the syllabus, there will always remain a micro area wherein every year, every paper, one or two shocker you will get, which are not directly found in the exam syllabus mentioned, but could be distantly connected to that. But a good subject should not have a lot of scope for it, because the definition of the terms are mentioned so crisply that shocker space is less. Third, which is, I believe, a cliched thing all of you already know, it's overlap. And that is where my Swiss knife analogy also has to be brought in. It is not just a paper. It is a tool to clear the exam. More the overlap with the GS, with your essay, with your personality test, other than optional itself being, a good scoring one, obviously would always act as a better force multiplier than anything else. And one last little thing. People, time to cover. There is a caveat here. Whatever time an optional paper requires to cover in the first draft does not get counted. Why? Because you must accept that the optional paper is an area of academic specialization. You are expecting to study it for once, first time in your life, and to write the answers which are so good that the people who have lived the subject for 3 decades or 4 decades, the professors who will correct your paper, to get, wow, what an answer. Quite an impractical demand. So please remember, keep it absolutely just, that it is just not possible humanly, however supernatural abilities that you have, to cover it so good in the first draft. Every optional after the classes get over would require revisions. The time to cover is counted for the revisions. First draft is all we're going to take, because एकदम इत्मीनान से एक-एक टॉपिक को कवर करके करना है. Anthropology, I found, is extremely good in this part, because in the GS, जब mains लिख रहे रहोगे, when you will be writing your mains, between the GS and optional, there'll be few days of gap. I have found some of the optionals may, even for one revision, consume the entire thing. And some good ones will give you 2, 3, 4 revisions because you have done it so crisply, revised, everything structured. आपको पेपर पढ़ के एंथ्रोपोलॉजिस्ट नहीं बनना है. आपको उस दिन on that particular day you have to write great answers. So better the inertia of memory, having revised it few times, you'll always run a better chance with that. Did you get my point here? Now, ये सर का है, दे देना उनको, बस 2 मिनट और 5 मिनट और लूंगा मैं, ठीक है. I'll quickly show you how every single year in the mains, in the prelims, you will find a direct reflection of the anthropology benefiting you. This is the prelims. I'll just quickly give you a glance of it, along with which area of anthropology this question straightforward came from. This year's paper. Prelims 2 questions. The viral genetic material, this is from the very basic genetics that you cover initially few classes only. Another with reference to monoclonal antibodies. It is from the DNA technology topic which is there, in the physical anthropology part. 2023, 24 was a mess. 23, microsatellite DNA, you cover satellite DNA in absolute detail. So all these questions then become cakewalk. 23 itself, metagenomics. Genomics has to be covered in detail, a cakewalk for an anthropology student. From the basic topic cell, you don't need to be an anthropologist for that, but yeah, it corresponds to the syllabus. See, genetics will offer you a lot number of questions every year. 2021, pedigree analysis say. DNA barcoding is from genetic polymorphism and genome study topic of it. This list is long. I have collected it for good 10, 20 years consistently. Fine. I'll show you from mains also. So what I'm just trying to tell you, that if you're revising your anthropology good, I mean just physical anthropology itself will give you, I think sir gave you the total number of marks that anthropology gets reflected in the GS paper overall. Have a look. DNA testing of a child, this is DNA fingerprinting. I was just talking about the forensics application. 2024. Microorganisms and fuel shortage, the DNA technology, how we can do genome editing of the microbes and make it produce more biofuel. Life expectancy, I was talking about the aging and how the aging could be slowed down and the life expectancy could be increased, and what are the different implications of it. Direct question from the anthropology syllabus. Applied biotechnology, COVID-19 and the biotechnology. So what I'm saying is GS, mains, prelims, always reflection of the question. One good thing about objective description of the syllabus is that the chances of repeat of the questions, I'm not going to read out, these questions are there are booklets available of the earlier year questions. What I'm trying to suggest, for every year this is a collection of the questions that we have. The same color that I've drawn is the repeat of the question. Every segment you'll find that the questions are getting repeated, and that is because the syllabus is objectively defined and अभी नया टॉपिक कहां से लेके आओगे, तो रिपीट होने का प्रेडिक्शन आपके पास अच्छा पावर बनता है यहाँ पे. So these are some of the aspects I believe are important to munch on and then decide for your own. Anyway, I'm more than happy to be always available for help. My GS students anyway know that. This is my mail ID. Feel free to ask if you have any question. YouTube वाले पे भी क्वेश्चन है तो मुझे दिखा दीजिए अगर है तो, अदरवाइज नहीं है? Can you share recordings like GS classes? तो recordings तो देते ही हैं. Anirvia, we share the recordings, right? So that's not at all a worry. हिंदी में वीडियोस मिलेगी, Shweta, I'm really sorry. That is not possible. And if you're going to take the exam in English, that's also a desire you should not have, because that is a poor training. Okay. Is my background from sciences? Anthropology is science, yes. Anmol. Oh, fifth is going to be due to anthropological reasons. Yes, that's what we say. एक दो और हैं. Shobha, I said that बहुत ज़्यादा dynamism नहीं होना चाहिए subject में, so that at least in case you have to write the paper again, you should get incremental reward because you'll be revising it twice and thrice. If there is a lot of dynamism, what I feel, so it is an opinion that it is, if you have a lot of dynamism, then every attempt you'll have a load of building a lot on that, which is, I believe, a liability. And remember, my word optional is not an area of academic study only, a tool it is. So better tool will always, make it easier for you to clear. Yeah, Jyoti Yadav. Overlap, Shobha, it is overlapping with GAS, with your interview. Jyoti, that can always be adjusted, bache. I mean, from that perspective, I mean, Vajiram is always, there to help. So they will accordingly put it with respect to proper alignment in the other GS batch. Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you, Anmol. Serious limit topic you exceeded. Well. That's more of an admin thing. I'll bring that up, Jitendra. I'll bring that up. Yeah. Thank you, Deepu. Okay. Go have a good dinner, all of you. Take very good care. We'll meet. Yeah. Shobha is asking something. Ek bari Shobha, click kar lijiye. From where I get the syllabus? Shobha, IAS बनना है. Go to the UPSC site, you'll find everything threadbare. क्या नौशीन खान, एक बार दिखा दीजिए उनके सवाल. Yeah, thank you Noshin. God bless you बच्चे. Yeah, thank you Jitendra. वो शोभा, there are many public. I think New Vishal publication का booklet आता है. There is a booklet of New Vishal publication. They give year wise, section wise, all the questions. But my style is that while teaching in the class, I give you all the notes and all the probable questions, much more than what the PYQs will suggest. So the only thing is I require sincerity from the students to attempt that. That is more important. I have studied biology till 10th only. वहीं से तो शुरू किया. अभी क्या? ये मेरे लिए बहुत अच्छा है कि जो श्वेत पत्र आएगा उस पर मैं अपने तरफ से आकृति बनाऊंगा. And have faith, अच्छे बनाऊंगा. I'll draw good pictures. So if you have studied till 10th, you have a lot of space for lesser overwriting, because then there are many who might have got something wrong written, so I'll have to rewrite. तो आपके लिए वो advantage रहेगा. Don't worry. Oh, very much, Anmol. Yes. Just that you have to have the eyes. अब बताया ना सबसे बड़ा trait क्या है इंसान में evolution के लिए? बढ़िया observation. So you have to have the eyes of observing well and connecting it. Raj Balram. 25th Raj. Basic cell topic पढ़ लो आदित्य. Study some basic reproduction chapter पढ़ लो from basic 10th NCERT तक. No 11th 12th also needed. If you can do that, that will be more than sufficient. Noshin, I told 25th. नहीं शोभा, we add examples. Current affair अलग से नहीं आता है ऑप्शन में, मगर examples add होते हैं. ठीक है. Nairik, absolutely. You have studied all the fundamentals, so it will certainly be a help. ठीक है बच्चों, see you soon. Good night. Take good care. Bye.